It's good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millsy, back at Hometown Commander. We're back for another episode of Millsy Brews to show I brew my version 1.0 deck list of the Commander in front of us on my quest out brew the Magic World. We're kicking off week 3 of Murders of Carla Man Arcanton, and as soon as I saw one particular creature in this set, you see it up in the preview window there, I knew I had to do this commander. This is a commander that I have played in the past that I always love seeing at the table. And I think in this set and some previous sets, it got some great new pieces. And I want to talk about what we can do with Arcades, the Strategist, aka Bant walls. The idea of walls or defenders that cannot attack as a concept for a deck is probably something a lot of you would scratch your head and go, but how do you win? And that's an absolutely great question that I think once we read Arcades, we'll completely understand. Arcades is a 4-mana 3/5 dragon with flying and vigilance. It says whenever a creature with defender ETBs under our control, we draw a card. That's great. Card draw is great thing on our commander. Each creature you control with defender assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power and can attack as though it didn't have defender. And friends, that's exactly why we're building the deck. There are so many cheap 0/5, 0/6 walls for 2 or 3 mana that we can play, get on the board, get a prime little group of them and just start swinging at our opponents. Now, there's plenty of ways we can get them in safely with both some ways to make them unblockable and other things. But what I really want to just discuss is some of the new cards we got to the deck first off, and then how we're going to try to close out the game. So as far as the new cards go, we already saw it. We want to talk about the Pride of Hulklade, a 11-mana 2/15 Crocodile Elk Turtle. And you're first out going to go, why would you play an 11-mana creature? Well, because it's not going to be 11 mana. It has the Galta effect where it costs X less to cast, where X is the total toughness of creatures you control. Friends, it's not going to be hard to get this thing down for 1 green mana. It's a 2/15 with the Defender. And then for 4 mana, we can say whenever a creature you control target creature gets +1/+0, and whenever this creature does combat damage to a player, draw cards equal to its toughness, and then it can attack as though it didn't have defender. So Pride of the Hulklade has a way to make itself be able to attack, but we don't necessarily need to do that unless we want to draw a massive amount of cards. But with Arcades out, this is effectively a 15/15 with defender. But we're going to pair this and other creatures up it with some of our ways to make our creatures unblockable. In Tetsuko Umezawa Fugitive, which says creatures you can hold power 1 or less, power toughness 1 or less can't be blocked. Not going to help for the Hulklade, but it will help for every single other wall we control. And then Delney, Streetwise Lookout, who we just covered last week. Creatures we control power 2 or less can't be blocked by creatures of power 2 or greater. So now that Hulklade can only be blocked by creatures of power 2 or greater, and if we pick at the right opponent, we could just be nailing somebody to the wall for 15. Now, Arcades isn't the only effect that's letting us do this attacking when they can attack and getting damage out of it. We have Assault Formation, which will always give us that combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. And for 1 mana, we can make a creature with Defender attack this turn as though it didn't have Defender. And then we have High Alert, which is effectively Arcades' effect on an enchantment. Each creature you control assigns combat damage to equal to its toughness rather than its power, and each creature can attack as though it didn't have defender. So we have backup copies of our commander in the deck. It's not like we're just relying on Arcades to be on the battlefield, which can be very hard if we don't see either of those 2 cards, because we will obviously need it on the battlefield. But the other thing we really need to help close out the game as well is Trample. Primal Rage and Garruk's Uprising are just an example of two cards that can give all of our creatures Trample. And so that way, even if they are blocked, they're still going to hit hard. We can use things like Aura Shards to start taking out our opponent's things, and things like Meekstone to take advantage of our opponent's creatures not untapping if they're power 3 or greater. But the real strength of the deck comes in the walls that we're playing and some of the rates we're getting for them. One of the other new cards that we got very recently that I can think of is Bedrock Tortoise. This is an 0/6 for 4. It says if as long as your turn, creatures you control have hexproof, and each creature with toughness greater than its power assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power, which is great. It doesn't have defender, so it can attack. So it's just going to take advantage of that. But again, putting that out there in more instances of that are even great when it comes to blocking, because we're going to be a deck that's going to be really good at blocking. Charix, the Raging Isle, and Zendikar Rising in 0/17. That again, with those abilities, is going to be pretty darn hard to deal with. And we have a great mix of walls. We have things like Wall of Frost, And Wall of Denial, big O7, big O8s for 3 mana. They're going to be tough to deal with. Wall of Junk, big O7 for 2 mana. You know, we have these big walls up on the top end, but we also have things like Overgrown Battlement, giving us tapping for green for each creature with Defender we control. Sylvan Caryatid, tapping for a mana. And Vine Trellis and Wall of Roots being able to add mana. So it's not like all our walls are just sitting there to give damage. Some of them also tap for mana. Crushing Drawbridge can give them all haste, and Resolute War Dog can protect our commander. You know, what I love about the walls is these are all really cheap creatures, most of them underneath 3 mana. They're going to draw us cards when Arcades is out, but they're also just going to come threats once people realize that we can start slamming into them with 5/5s for 2 mana, you know, in all relativity. And we can use things like Huatli, the Sun's Heart, to continue with that toughness thing, but it's -3, lets us gain life equal to the greatest toughness among creatures you control, which can very easily get really good, right, with some of these big walls that we have. Most of our other spells are mainly just ramp. We want to get up as high as we can. We're playing Slaughter the Strong and Dusk to Dawn, 2 one-sided board wipes, since all of our creatures are going to have power 3 or less. Both of these are going to do a great job at not hitting them. Playing a good cross-section of, or trying to get some protection in Clever Concealment and Flawless Maneuver, though our one biggest threat is going to be board wipes, and so we want to try to protect ourselves from that. But 2 spells that you'll probably never see in a commander deck that work really well here, and they're kind of like alpha strikes for us, are Bar the Door and Tower Defense. Bar the Door gives all of our creatures +0/+4 until end of turn for 3 mana, and Tower Defense giving all of our creatures +0/+5 +0/+5 and reach until end of turn for 2 mana. You are not going to see, you know, overwhelming Stampede style effects this cheap that do this good, especially in this deck. Your O5s turn into O10s that are now hitting as 10/10s, and people are not going to be able to deal with that. And if they can deal with it, they're losing their entire board to it. That's what makes this deck so good, is its ability to take a bunch of things that don't look very scary and immediately make them very hard for your opponent to deal with. But now that we've got kind of a sense of what the deck does, let's take it in to a playtest. Opening hand, we see Sylvan Caryatid, a great defender that can add tap for mana, so we have a good chance to get some more access to here. We see Broker's Hideout in our opening hand. We're lacking a little bit of white, so I think that's what we're immediately going to do. Get that Broker's Hideout down, sacrifice it to go get a Plains, and put it on the battlefield tapped and gain that life. Now having access to all 3 of our colors is going to become pretty important. Get that Vine Glimmer down here, turn 2, just show one of those 2, and get the Caryatid down. We know a turn 3 Arcades if that's what we want, and I don't think I particularly see anything better to do, but we'll draw it. Turn 3, play this Island. Now there's an argument we dump the Phantasms here, or we could get the Ramasekor down, which can make us an 0/3 if we cast 2 spells on a turn. And beginning of combat on our turn, creatures we control with Defender gain Exalted, so if they attack alone, they get buffed for the amount of defenders we control, which could be helpful, but I think we just slam Arcades here, get it in, so that way if it survives around to our next turn, we can start playing defenders and drawing cards. Here we play that Drift of Phantasms to draw a card, and then with that extra, that we can get this Arcane Signet down, still hold up that Swords of Plowshares just in case, and maybe Arcades gets a hit there in the air. Next turn, we have 6 mana. Unfortunately, not enough to play multiple walls, as we don't have multiple walls, but I like getting the Ramasekor down here, and we could just as easily use this Eaten by Piranhas on our turn to make another defender. If not, we just take a nice attack here, hit the 0/5 into somebody in the air for 5, and live to our next turn. Here, we could always keep 2 of that mana up to keep the Piranhas and the Plowshares up for somebody else. Lush Portico comes in tapped and lets us surveil 1. I think we're good on the Rampant Growth for now. We got plenty of mana. We're going to play that Sunhome Stalwarts, or the Shield Bearers, which gives everybody +0/+2, draw a card. Dump the Jeskai Barricade, get an 0/3 with that, and draw another card with Arcades. And now you start to see why Arcades can be really good if you're drawing enough cards. We put a bunch of power of walls down now, and now we have a 0/7 in the air because of the Shield Bearers that now we can point at somebody. And again, we should have 3 mana up for Beast Within now on somebody else's turn if need be. We'll go one more turn. Canopy Vista in untapped. Might as well just play the Farseek, get it out of the way, and we'll just go get our Tri-Land and get it in and get it out of the way, so that way we can hopefully shuffle our deck and get access to more things later. But the cool part about playing that spell is we could always play one of these 3 on something and get another 0/3 with it. This may not be a bad turn for the Exalted, because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 defenders because of the 2 tokens we made from Ramus, making that Drift of Phantasms a 6/13 when it attacks, and probably being a lot for someone to handle in the air. But this just goes to show you what I think your average board state's going to look like. A bunch of walls that may not look very good, but when you're making them into their power and toughness being their toughness, they become great creatures that are great on the cost. Going to keep drawing us, getting access to more things, more cards, and putting more permanents on the battlefield. Well, let me know, what do you think of Arcades down in the comment section below. You play Arcades? If you have, or if you do play, I'd love to hear what you think of the new support that's come out for Arcades. Otherwise, let me know, what do you think of Bant walls down in the comment section below, and I will catch you guys next time.